Do you think this photo was taken by a camera or a phone? It's getting harder and harder to tell these days. But I took this photo with my iPhone 16 Pro Max. I'm filming on the iPhone 16 Pro Max right now. This is the audio straight out of the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But how do you shoot photos that look like this on your phone? Well, I'm using the telephoto lens, so it's a 120mm full frame equivalent. So how do we get that background separation? Well, that's fake. The iPhone's faking the background separation. But it's doing a pretty good job. You even get that swirly bokeh look. It kind of looks like a vintage lens. It has a lot of character. That swirl almost looks like an imperfection, but it still somehow adds to the overall image. I feel like the swirly bokeh kind of draws you into the center, and that's what you want with a portrait, right? That's why the background's blurred, so you're not paying attention to what's in the background, you're focusing on the subject of the image. So how do you get an image like this? So for me personally, if it's a bright sunny day like it is today, I like to position the person in the shade. So I look for a tree, I put them under the tree, but I shoot towards the sun. I'm shooting through the leaves, so I get this nice, pleasing background blur, this nice, pleasing bokeh, like it's exploding in the background. I like the yellows and the greens in the background. Now the iPhone 16 series has something a little different than the iPhone 15. It has these almost film simulations. So I like to use the rose gold so I can get more reds, or just the regular gold or the amber. You can use a cooler film simulation, or you could say creative style, but I tend to like the warmer styles for portraits because bluish or greenish skin tones kind of make you think about death. So the iPhone has really bad flaring, so you want to avoid getting the sun in the background like that, especially if you're using cinematic mode like I am right now, because it will start to blur parts of my hair and it will start to blur out my beard sometimes because it doesn't recognize that as part of my face. Sometimes in situations like this, where there's a lot of light behind me, it kind of changes the color of my hair. So the top of my hair is kind of blondish brown, but you can see it almost turns it gray when you've got a gray background like this. Now let's move back over to the tree and see what happens. So in some ways, the iPhone's definitely easier. You don't have to really worry about exposure because its auto exposure is really good. And it can be more reliable in some ways, but in other ways, it's a lot less reliable because you get a lot of flaring and a lot of strange like discolorations and strange effects with this cinematic mode or the portrait mode that you have to spend a lot of time correcting. But luckily, in this photo, her hair is so smooth and there's no random hairs sticking up like my hair, and it did a good job at separating the background from the subject. So personally, I don't think the iPhone is quite there yet. I wouldn't use an iPhone for a professional photo shoot or a wedding. It doesn't have 2 card slots, so you don't have a backup of your files if something happens to them and they get corrupted. But Apple also does a pretty good job with its files. I've never seen an iPhone photo get corrupted, but it's possible. See, now the white balance is all off. I used to be really warm in the other shots, and now I'm kind of cool because I didn't set a custom white balance. I'm just relying on the iPhone to do all that for me. All right, so what about the color? So the picture style that I used was rose gold. You get those by pushing that new shutter button on the side of the iPhone 16, 16 Pro, or 16 Pro Max. But even though that was kind of warm, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I have some presets that I've made on my computer to take my iPhone photos and make them look like Ricoh GR positive film photos. Positive film is a film simulation that Ricoh made for their GR series cameras. The GR3X is my favorite camera. It's a small pocketable camera with an APS-C sensor. That camera has a much larger sensor than the iPhone. All right, so I applied that preset, and what I'm doing with that preset is I'm taking the blues and I'm desaturating them. I'm also darkening the luminance on the blues. Then I'm taking the yellows and the oranges and I'm moving them towards red, away from yellow and away from green. I add a little bit of contrast because that's what you see on the Ricoh GR photos. I also darken the image a little bit. I want it to look really deep because that's what you'd see on the Ricoh and that's what you see on a full frame camera. I feel like the iPhone overexposes everything. So usually when I'm taking photos or making videos, I underexpose by one stop with the exposure compensation on the iPhone. If I don't do that and I get into bright sunlight, my skin gets blown out and overexposed. So I also have a high contrast black and white, mimicking the high contrast black and white found in the Ricoh GR cameras. I have other presets for film simulations to mimic some of Fujifilm's film simulations as well, but today we're talking about Ricoh because that's what I was trying to do with these photos. So these photos were pretty spur of the moment. We were hiking, I said, hey, turn around, took the picture. That illustrates that you can take photos like this with your iPhone, something you keep in your pocket all the time. You don't have to carry a big DSLR or mirrorless camera on hiking trips anymore. Unless you want to do like wildlife photography, it's really hard to do that with a 120mm full frame equivalent. And when you zoom in past the 5x, it's digitally zooming in. So it's not optical and it looks really bad. So don't just zoom in with your fingers. Actually click that little 5x button because then you know you're going to the 5x lens and you're not just zooming into the 1x lens 4.9 times or something like that. So I think with this iPhone, I could definitely mimic the look of an A7 IV from Sony or even a Canon AE1 film camera. You just have to have the right apps and know how to edit it a little bit, but you can get a pleasing image. You could also put indie filters. You could also put like a black pro mist filter on there if you want to get less sharpness and less contrast. Look, I like the Apple ProRes RAW video footage. It looks really good. It's not over sharpened. I don't really like the Apple RAW photos. I would rather shoot in portrait mode because I think it does a pretty good job with that background blur, better than I could do in Photoshop. But as far as video, I would use the Kino app and use the Apple ProRes RAW and then put the Stallman 3 LUT on there from Tyler Stallman. I think that looks really good. It looks like you put in a lot of work color grading when in reality you just recorded it straight to your camera roll like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this kind of content, scroll through my channel, check out my other videos, and hit that subscribe button because I got a lot more videos to come. Thanks for watching.